artists around the world. Teaching artists around the world. Artists around the world. Teaching artists around the world. Monica Canilao. So it says here, in the heart of Oakland, California, Monica Canilao spends her days stitching, painting, printing, and breathing life into the refuse that dominates our time and place, moving across media, sometimes with friends, sometimes alone. Canilao makes a delicate visual record of the personal communal. She received a BFA from the California College of Arts and Crafts and is shown in galleries, community spaces, and abandoned places worldwide. Born in Redwood City, California. She got her BFA from CCAC, back when it was CCAC.
Different.
And has shown at places such as your Urban Center for the Arts, Luggage Store Gallery, Deitch Projects, Black Rat Press, Dia Rosa Preserve Room, and on and on. And I was so absolutely proud to be able to work with Monica and oh my God, who's the other artist? Sorry.
Zarathustra. We collaborate a lot.
Collaborator on this incredible project. But anyways, welcome, Monica.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So I'm based in the Bay Area, but I kind of travel a lot for work, and I've also been based in Detroit because Juxtapose gave me an art house back in 2010, which I made into invited tons of artists out and made a whole art community there. I've also lived in New Orleans that I go back to often and was just there painting some murals, and I have big communities all over the country. So I get to travel a lot and kind of have these big families of artist friends and musicians and performers, and as much as possible, try and activate people whenever I'm going somewhere. And anytime I'm traveling, it's always for art projects. So I don't really travel for just it is pleasure to go make art, but I feel like if I'm going to go somewhere, I need to be contributing to where I'm going. So a lot of what I've been doing in the last 7 years, I've been collaborating with my partner Zarathustra, who's also had a very epic art practice. And our collaborative name is just our initials, it's MCXT. We just 2 weekends ago did we put a very large art boat installation. It was like a big junk boat that was actually it was built to be on the water. And NATO curated us to be at the front of the art market at Fort Mason, which was cool because it was also right on the water. And we had originally made that boat as part of a project and residency with the Santa Cruz Art and History Museum. Some of the things that people will kind of curate me into are oh, you've made cool, weird art boats. You've done these crazy projects. So then I have been asked to do these other fun ways to reimagine a similar vibe. I had the art boats I'm talking about before was Swoon's Swimming Cities of Serenissima and Switchback Sea. And those went down the Hudson River in New York. And we also crashed the Venice Biennale on big junk boats powered by recycled Mercedes engines propelling.
By the way, I was there.
Oh, you were?
Yeah.
Did you?
I saw it. Yeah, I went on the boat.
Oh, sweet.
That's great. on that island.
In Italy or in New York?
In Venice.
Oh, cool. That's awesome. Yeah, we're we're gonna go. So too bad. We started in Slovenia, built there, and then came back. And actually, when those got installed, the lizard came back, and I helped Callie put them all back together because I had built the kitchen on Alice, and there was a live lizard in the crate from Italy after the junk boats came back. But that's so cool that you were there. And so the more recent one, the show I just took down that me and Zara did this is our second show at the Santa Cruz Art and History Museum, the MA. And they were there's this crazy carnival boat culture in Santa Cruz and Capitola that a lot of people had never heard about. I spent a lot of time growing up there I never heard of the Venetian water carnivals. And those were these like really fabulous boat parades that were started in the 1800s and ended in 1927. And that's what actually brought power to Santa Cruz. And they were literally just like carnival on water. And I was like, how did I not know about this? I've like spent so much time growing up here as a kid too. And there were just these like elaborate, crazy art boats and performances on the land. And there was like a hobo queen and like all these crazy things. And on the side in the city next door in Capitola, they had the Begonia Festival, which was also art boats, but on the water. And they went down the Soquel Creek. And we ended up working with both Capitola and the museum in Santa Cruz, and their boats were all made out of fresh begonia flowers. So they had these like big art installation boats with fresh flowers. And then Santa Cruz had this other boat history, and they were like, you've done boat history stuff. And we created this like very queer, like fantastical, very pink and neon art boat covered with all these vintage fake flowers that we found at the flea market and like all around. So that was the installation that you asked us to just re-put up. And all of that was actually built on the old Begonia Festival floats. So they used to go down the river for 65 years and they just were full of styrofoam. So we built it all based on what we would float down the creek. And then we were doing a Vogue performance and all my costuming and stuff. And that was what the video was from that's connected to the installation. We filmed that while we kind of like hijacked the nautical parade that they do in Capitola with all the like old folks. And like, so that was fun to like kind of do a like queer takeover of their boat parade.
I put a link to your gram too in the chat for folks.
Oh yeah, there's lots of stuff on there. It's been kind of cool. Like I've always loved making costuming, and I've gotten to do a couple projects lately. Like I put all my costumes in the museum as part of that boat installation because it was very much part of like the culture of performance and boat parades. And it's funny because I actually went to Mardi Gras and then took them down right after that. So I had to make all new costumes for the last Mardi Gras and a bunch of floats with friends. But the two other last costume commissions and collaborations I've done, one just happened last week with a museum in Spain, in Cordoba. I made a big, crazy, elaborate Yamaya outfit with like all these, it was like a giant altar dress and a big headpiece crown for her performance in Spain. She did a ritual procession. So I had wanted to make a big altar dress piece in the past and just never finished it. So I got to do this for a friend for a very specific, like Yemaya is the goddess of like the deep sea. So they're an Orisha, and that's who they were honoring. So they dressed as Yemaya, and I got to make the whole outfit, and it has all of their tools on it and all the portraits. There's a lot of pictures on my Instagram and I'm putting them up on my website, but all the little portraits on the dresser of her ancestors and their collages that were like as part of the wearable piece. And then I did a few months before that, a big costuming commission, and performance as part of Annie Sprinkle and Beth Pickens. Annie Sprinkle is like an old school eco activist and sex worker, like porn star, from back in the day. So she's like a very iconic elder, and they call themselves ecosexuals, and they do a lot of like art and activism. They get married to like all the different like the earth and the soil and the trees and the sea and the brine shrimp and etc. So this one, they asked me to do the costumes for their wedding to fire, and they make documentaries as part of it, and they interview all these different artists and activists that are like doing work within that system. So like one of their last ones was called Water Makes Us Wet, and it was all about like, water protectors and all the different facets of people working with water. And then this one, they spoke with and invited all these different artists and activists to play a part in their wedding, and I made all their outfits with my friend Azul. as well as another really iconic artist, Guillermo Garcia Pina, and I got to make a bunch of their outfits and make them all this big elaborate jewelry, and they like did all the proceedings for the wedding, and it was a big art like explosion, and tons of artists got together. And Courtney, I made costume pieces for Courtney for that performance too, like a big cowrie crown and stuff. So these like really fun collaborations are, I kind of like specifically like pulling in collaborations into my life in general, and I always have, because it creates these really like special bonds with other artists that otherwise like if you're an artist, that's the most intimate thing you can do, is like share and trust somebody with your work, and kind of just like navigating like how you're creating something with another person that you're trusting enough, you like your work enough to want to make work with them. So it's just this very like intimate bond that forms, and that's how some of my most like sweetest long lasting friendships have like bloomed.
It
It's through
seems like a lot of your work, just as you know, mine. I was like, I always feel like you're kind of stepping in the middle of a party when you. When I
oh
look,
yeah,
like
for
it looks like this stuff came out of some amazing culture that I don't quite have access to, but I can kind of sense. But it
it's all
does.
punk. It's all like, you want to see something happen, you make it happen. People are somebody's hungry, you're going to feed each other, and then the next time around they're going to feed you. It's very much a collaboration in like energy and just caretaking. Like that's a huge, the life and the practice between taking care of people in community and making work and why you're making it is all very much related. It's not like, here's my life, when I go home, it's done. That's not, there's no separation. And that's like a really important part of being an artist that's living in the world. If what's the point if you're like not activating people and yourself by kind of putting yourself out there and helping other people with it?
Well, I have a class I do called, it's called Making a Life of Art, but it's about making your life like art. But
Mhm.
but would you say like your life is kind of art, right? Like
That's
you're
not
like,
like art. It's like there's no, everything is, if you guys saw my room, like my rooms are really, it's just like a giant altar. Like everything in it is just things I've traded with other artists, and every time I want something like from another artist, I always trade. Like every tattoo on my body is a trade, and everything I do, it's all very energy based in exchange. And I also used to do tons of hand done tattoos, and I'd never accept money. It's always like, what is this worth to you? What is the energy exchange? What's involved? And how can we push each other to like go places we wouldn't otherwise? And in the last 7 years, me and Zara like collaborating, we've done like very wild projects, and a lot of them, it's not all even based in money actually. Like a lot of the times, it'll go between like, we're doing a mural for this, like these people with like a big budget, and then the next mural we'll do is for like, we did a one for free for the Crescent Care Clinic in New Orleans, because those people are underserviced, and they're servicing like queer friends in the community and people that are addicts, and people without homes. And it's like, those people really deserve art, and like having art be accessible is the key, the most important part. If your art is locked away and somebody's like buying it to put in storage, like what is the point of that?
you are speaking the Oakland language. I love it. What about, okay, I love this. What about your aesthetic kind of influences? There's a lot going on. I mean, talk about Baroque. You've got a lot. There's a lot of color. There's a lot of aesthetic kind of cultural influences. Can you describe where your kind of aesthetic comes from?
I mean, I grew up in flea markets, like the whole everything I grew up with was like thrift stores, flea markets. Like my dad's Filipino, I'm half Filipino. All the aesthetic comes from just like being around people that reuse stuff. Like my dad grew up on the street, like like making his way the best you can. And I've traveled and I've dumpstered for my whole life. And like the things people throw out is is crazy. Like you can find, you don't have to buy a single thing if you're resourceful, like honestly. And I've also kind of pushed that within, I've like on and off for many, many, many years taught kids and elders and like worked with creative growth. And every single time I teach a class or a workshop or anything, I always base it in using recycled materials, because I think people kind of get into this mindset where they're like, oh, I have to buy the newest thing. And it's like, if I'm not up to date and I don't have this, like, I'm not going to be enough or have enough. And, you know, there's so much stuff people throw out that is very useful. And things also with age that have been recycled also keep an energy in them. Like there's a different spirit in things made by hand and things that have been used and cared for, and things, older things honestly are just made better. Like people weren't in this like fast like consumer culture where they're like, no, I'm making it to last because we can't afford another thing. Like why would I make it to break in a year, which everything now is just like so like expendable and like made without, you know, any point. They don't want it to last. They make chip bags on purpose to rip down the side because they don't want you to keep them fresh. Like it's all purposely made to like be thrown out. And I'm just so turned off by that. I'm just like, I hate it. And I just, everything I make, even just like the jewelry I make like this, like I don't repeat anything. And I use recycled materials in almost everything I do, or traded, or, you know, like somebody's grandmother will pass away and people reach out to me on the internet and they're like, I don't know what to do with all this weird lace and these beads and these materials. So people will send me these care packages of things that they like, I can't make something, so they pass it on to other people. And then when people pass on materials to me that I'm not necessarily going to use, I'll find somebody that will use that and pass it on to them. Like I'm not interested in holding on to things I'm not going to utilize. Like I'm a very like useful hoarder. Like I have hoarded for sure. I've lived in the Bay my whole life. So, and there's like lots of, the flea markets here are incredible. Like literally, like you can find anything there, you know.
I used to live just like Jack London Square, right by the Oakland flea market, like in this old warehouse, and like you really could give out anything in that thing.
Anything. I mean, I found a black powder pistol that works like in a display case, like for a few dollars. You know, I found a real leopard fur coat for $10 a few days ago. I was like, okay, like anything. And I think that if you have the time to work and like scavenge and even just like go through your own possessions within your house, you can find the things and you don't need to necessarily go buy stuff. I think a lot of thing that people also like have lost track of is repairing your own things and being able to have skills. So like anytime I teach kids how to use power tools. Like your kindergarten, you should learn how to use a drill right now. Like, I don't care. That's important. You should learn how to use tools. And things get gendered in this like really trippy way that you're like, why shouldn't boys use machines? That doesn't make any sense. And if you get to people when they're young, you can show them and teach them like nothing. There's no limitations to like how you can present and what you're allowed to use and learn. It just doesn't make sense. So as soon as you can, like affecting the youth and like people and even elders, like some people are like, oh, I just thought I couldn't do that. You know, like you're not allowed like to use spray paint because you're like a young girl. Like that's crazy. So I think just like breaking boundaries within anybody you're in contact with and skill sharing has been like a big part of just like breaking the limitations that people get put on themselves and like learn to accept from just like general society. So I think just being really open and like always talking to people that are like trying to learn something is like a huge part of an art practice too, and just like, existing as a human. Like
Hey,
you have to do that.
I'm with you. So, hey, welcome some of our newer folks here that joined. Carrie, Colette, D-Dem. What's up, people? Benita, George. Hi, everybody. Listen, you know, it's very conversational. Feel free to jump in with questions. Monica's amazing. And also, I mean, as you can tell, Monica lives, breathes, is art, right? Like in the spirit of it, the dream of it, the practice, which I really like. Can you, maybe Monica, talk to me about your art practice? Because a lot of the work I see of yours looks like it takes lots of work. Do
Yeah.
you work on art every day? Like, do you have a rhythm? What is your work style?
Well, I don't sleep very much. And anytime I'm awake, I'm working. So I'm a very driven out, like, workaholic. I
Kind of
mean, I
got that
go to
feeling.
bed around 2 or 3. I went to bed at 4 a.m. last night and I get up automatically at 7. So as soon as I get up, I'm working. And depending on the project, it's really different. So like I always have about 10 projects going at any time. And then I have deadline bigger projects. Like right now, I'm putting together a whole massive show with the Haight Street Art Center. And that's opening in a month, and like they just gave us the date now. So we're like creating this like massive show. And then every time I'm working on something, I'm always going to have several collaborations going on the side. I'm going to have at least 5 trades I'm also working on. I'm also going to
That's
be
something you do. You just have trades going. Just trades are
trades.
going.
Trades are my shit. Like I love trades. Like I just traded a whole bunch of salmon my friend caught in Alaska last summer for some big earrings. I just traded two
No,
small paintings for 10 grand in dental work. Like I trade for everything. I trade for work on my car. Like I trade for body work. All the body work I ever get from friends is all jewelry, traded for jewelry that I make people. Like I trade tattoos for stuff. I trade everything. Like it is
how
so,
inspiring
it's
is
so
that?
fun.
It's like there was a Saturday Night Live episode that was funny, and it was like Picasso at a bar, and they're like, Picasso, will you please pay your bill? You never pay your bill. And he scribbles on a napkin, he goes, I'm Picasso. And he like,
Yeah,
and
exactly.
then, like your art becomes your currency in a way, right?
Oh, it is. And also just like, it doesn't even have to be a thing. It can literally just be helping someone out. And then, it's all karma, and the energy will come back around. Like I feed people every chance I get. Every time people come over, I have like a weird gift for them. It's just part of my like love language too, is how I relate to people. I'm like, I found you this perfect gift. I'm so excited. Like it's just part of like when you find so many treasures and then you're like, oh, this is going to be perfect for this person. It's going to make them so happy. Like,
Oh my God, I
it can
totally
happen
want to be
anywhere.
like you. I want to be like you. That's what I need to do. I'm gonna start getting people gifts all the time. It's a good
You
idea.
should. It's really fun. It's like getting a gift because when the person's like, oh, I'm so happy. But a lot of the collaborations are just literally born in people being like, I'm excited about your work. I'm excited about your work. Like, let's just do something. Why not? Like a
How do you
lot of
make
people.
how do you make the collaboration, like, sometimes collaboration can be tough. How do you keep it fun? Like
I mean, you just have to read the situation. I mean, you just have to make good judgment calls. You can't say yes to everything, honestly, like obviously. But if you have to be honest with people too. If you're like, I don't want to collaborate or I'm too busy, that's like sometimes what'll happen. But I mean, with some people that I've been now am great friends with, like my friend Aaron Huey, he just reached out to me on Instagram. Like Instagram is really dumb, but it's also has been a great tool for connecting people. He was like, you're like riding motorcycles in the desert naked and doing all this. He's like, I want to come collaborate with you somehow. And then now we're working on a book together. And he shoots for National Geographic. He started Amplifier Art, and he's just always very busy too and doing all these things. But anytime we're in the same place, we meet up. He sends me stuff. I'm working on his photographs from the like East Jesus, Salvation Mountain, Salton Sea area, and it's going to be called Shelter. And I'm just working into his photographs. He made a book on Leonard Knight called Where the Heaven Flowers Grow, and he puts out his own really wild, elaborate art books. So this has been years and years in the making, and because it doesn't have a deadline, it's like I work on it when I can. But it's just very fun to like be challenged. Like these are, I don't know, his photos are very epic, and I'm just working and sewing and painting and collaging into them, and eventually it's going to become a book that we're creating together. And
That's awesome.
it's
Hey,
just like
listen,
that. It's just organic.
I totally get it. Hey, so if folks have questions, Monica's so awesome. And I think the not just the art you make is awesome, but the way you approach art and life is really inspiring to me. I always feel like the best reason to get into art is that it's the best life to live. What other kind of life would you choose? But I wouldn't want to know if anybody else had some thoughts or questions or conversation piece to throw at Monica.
I think it just sounds so lovely to live inside of a community care, reciprocity, art environment. I like hearing those stories.
I mean, you can do it too. You can like, some people have hit me up and been like, how do you like get into collaborating with people, and how does that happen? And I think that one just thing is to pay attention and ask people what they're excited about, what they're working on, and you could be like, do you need any help? Like, that's been a very easy way to like build these connections. Like when people are working on something, it's because they're passionate about it. And if you offer to help them, or like, oh, I'm working on this, like you find these common interests and these connections. And, you know, either whether you're actually like love the project or not, just even getting the experience of like seeing how somebody else builds something or sews something is just going to be interesting every time. It's like going to school daily. Like if you kind of just like put your energy out there, whether it's asking for help or helping someone else, you're going to get something out of it from the experience. So, you know, if you're just open to like being interested in what other people are doing, you're going to create these communities no matter what. Like, and I don't know, I feel like people that are likely passionate find each other too.
And certainly, Carrie, that's something we talked about. You're in Austin. And I know that it's part of your homework, right? You're like, I'm gonna go make art friends in this town, right? Yeah. That's cool. It's good. It's good to see that. I mean, certainly Austin has some Oaklandness to it to some degree. Anyone else want to jump in? Amber?
My question was already answered, but maybe we can dive back into kind of the same thing. I had questions around the art and traveling and how those connections has kind of grown your practice and how you can see that. But you kind of touched upon that since I had that question. So I got to come back around to one. I'm curious about seeing some more of your work. I only saw a few pictures so far. I don't know if we can do a screen share and look at some work.
Oh, I mean, I have a very giant website that's just my name.com, and it has a insane amount of archives on it. So this page is literally every single square is just a different project. And if you open it, it's like what happened in the project, who was for. This is just a photo shoot for our friend Brontes, like styled them for this magazine.
This
The
one, right?
Painted Desert Project.
Yeah.
So my friend Chip Thomas, that I met also through just him reaching out, the Painted Desert Project was Chip Thomas is also an artist and he's also a doctor, and he asked me to come out and usually he has muralists like paint on different big road signs on the reservation, and that's just to attract people to like stop and buy people's wares and stuff. And there was a family, the Woody family, that their food stand had burnt down in a grease fire. So we rebuilt them, me and my friend Doodles, we rebuilt them a food stand, and they still use it now. And each side had a big mural on it. So we kind of just came and made and built the structure and painted it, which they had never done something like that. And the whole family ended up showing up and like making us fry bread every day. And like, we just got to meet a lot of like cool folks living on the reservation, and I still talk to them today. You know, it's just like, if you're creating something in a community, or like, this is how you connect to people that you might not otherwise ever
That's super
meet or talk to. And you know, I still talk to them, and I want to go visit them again. And I don't know, it's just like the more you activate a space or do something, like I really like art projects that actually like have an effect on people. Like they now can make a living because they can like use it as a food stand again. And
I'm
it
just, I'm just
creates,
showing stuff as we go, because I think it's
yeah,
cool
yeah.
for people to
That's
get
the
into your
art.
world. I mean,
So
look at
that
your
this is
world.
the performance. Yeah. This is the performance I was talking about. With the, so we made this for the Santa Cruz Ma, and this is on Capitola Beach, and it was supposed to be performed on the water. And this really funny thing happened where there was a 24-hour rain, and it pushed all this stuff into Soquel Creek like 3 days before we got there, and we'd had been working on this boat the whole time. And the city drained the creek, so there was no river with the boat on, which was like, I cried. But we instead put the boat on the water on at the end of the waterway in front of the ocean. So we had to just adapt to what happened with, which is also climate change shit. Like the world is just, we have to keep adapting because we're messing up the world. So literally like the waterway was gone that we planned the project on for the time that we had to do this boat. So all this canoe under the flowers right there, that was all like supposed to be in this waterway behind Adrian right there. So now then we had to put it on the beach instead and do the performance on the beach.
Well, I mean, there's many things that stand out. It's almost like your eye can't even focus because there's so much stuff happening. It's in an amazing, dazzling way. Can I ask about these headdresses? They're really striking.
Oh, I just like making costumes. I mean, I've also done this show called Headgear that, so a lot of the headpieces I've also made for an art show or like for a performance or for Marty. It's always like any excuse to make a headpiece. I'm supposed to be making one right now for another show, but they're often for shows, but then they get worn and utilized and they get lived in. And so these are all just costume pieces. I made everybody's stuff.
How pretty is that? It's really great.
And we did a whole procession, and there's a film that it's a little too big to put online, so I haven't figured out how to do that, but that was playing next to the exhibition. So we had like a filmmaker come and like film the performance, and it's all very, we were like making an offering to the piñata we made was actually Jessica Yemaya's daughter.
Oh, fun.
Yeah. But it's all really fun. And
Well,
there's,
yeah, it reminds me sort of like in its own way, like how Warhol had the factory. I think that's Warhol's greatest art is the factory, because it was just all these people that came in and out of it. And I get the feeling like the performers are your friends, and there's like this kind of there's this energy that exudes through the documentation.
oh, they're definitely all friends, but also, yeah, and they're also often other artists, and we always try to get people paid, and we always, anytime there's an opening or event, we always feed people. There's always music. We always pay performance musicians, any excuse to like have a gathering happen and people get paid. And a lot of work too that happens is mutual aid based. And anytime we sell work, we split half of it with different friends in need, usually Black trans folks or friends. Some friends have been caretaking for 7 kids, or 5 kids, sorry, because their family got incarcerated. So for years we sent money to them. And you know, it's if you have something and it's enough and it's more than enough for you, you should be sharing it. Like, period. There's no point in hoarding wealth. I mean, it's not wealth, it's just like resources. It's just so much more rewarding to be like feeding other people and like spreading out resources, because it will come back. It'll come and flow and ebb and flow, and you're always going to have more if you share, you know.
Where do these things, you make some of this stuff's pretty big. Where does it go when you're done? Like, is there some giant warehouse, or what's
No.
is it all in your living room?
Stuff gets recycled and stuff. I had to get an art storage after the first Ma museum show was massive. It was the whole museum, like the whole main floor. Had to get an art storage, but then stuff just ends up going to shows and stuff gets sold or repurposed or rebuilt into other things. And yeah, and I mean, something we just sold a very large mural we made for the Oakland Museum, the Queer California show. That's going to Europe after we show it for the last time at the Haight Street Art Center, which should be opening June 8th. But I don't know if any of you are in the Bay. You're all from different
Is
places.
anybody in the Bay? Is there none of the Bay Area people? There's certainly there's a large task Bay Area contingent, that's for sure. They're
Yeah.
not on this call, but there's a
People
lot
have
of.
touched the Bay before. Also just did all the artwork for the SF Jazz Festival. So that'll just be up in their publication and up around the city. If you guys come through the Bay, it'll be around.
Totally. Any other
Um,
questions for Monica? There's just so much to dive into, and yeah, go ahead, Amber. You're
I got a
back.
question. I'm back. So we've heard about like kind of these superhuman feats of, you know, a mass amount of time. You only sleep like 3 to 4 hours a night. You're traveling all over. You're able to collaborate with all these people. I can't help but know or feel like there must be something that is a struggle or a tension within this complicated practice. And so my question is, what are you still working on? What are you trying to figure out how it does, like, how can it work correctly? Or have you figured everything out?
I feel like I'm thriving, but my body is like mad at me. Like I tweaked my neck 3 weeks ago and I'm still in pain from that. Like I think as we age, the body isn't bouncing back like I wanted to, which is like very, you know, it's a shot. It sucks. Like it's instead of 3 days to heal, it takes like 3 weeks or 3 months, you know? Like I pinched a nerve in my neck and I've had to get so much body work. It's really expensive and I don't have insurance or anything. So it's like I do as many trades as I can for care usually. And I don't know. It's just like very interesting. Like I'm turning 40 this year and I'm like, I don't feel 40, but I feel like I've lived like 5 million lives at the same time. So it's like a very interesting, the passage of time is interesting. I feel like some days are way too short and I just wish I had more hours in the day so I could work on more things. And, you know, and I wish people weren't so far away, but it's just like really relishing in every moment you have with like people. And you know, I have 2 canoes and I go canoeing a lot. I take people out a lot. And I used to have like an art shooting range under the piers that had this like secret spot that just got torn down. But my friend rescued a lot of the stuff that was hanging in it. It was like tons of flowers and chandeliers and all kinds of stuff we'd put up over a decade. So I'm going to re-put up that. And that's like also an important part of being a workaholic is resetting and like adventuring and like creating just like really joyous moments so that you can kind of re-up your energy. Like I go canoeing as much as I can and I go out into nature and I like try and just organize like I really like to organize like big groups of friends doing things and like going to the beach or like doing whatever, getting oysters out of the water. And I think it's just like you have to keep a balance. Like even if you're going to an office every day, you have to like purposely make time to like throw yourself out of that picture or you're going to go crazy. Like I don't really get bored of working on stuff because I have so many kinds of projects. Like I have so many different kinds of workspaces. Like in my closet is like all my jewelry. I have a jewelry studio in one place. I have my studio elsewhere. I have my Zara studios elsewhere. And we do different kinds of work in each kind of spot. And then a lot of the painting, like all the murals are like on the street and you're getting activated by people that way. And the public art aspect is also important of just like keeping stuff accessible to people. Like I don't want my work only to be accessible to one kind of person with money. Like that's really uninteresting to me. Like I think it's like, what's the point? And also it doesn't even have to be art. Like I don't know. I think just seeing outside of like what's happening in your life and like making sure you're like giving stuff to folks on the street that don't have shit. You're like, oh, I'm having a lot of perspective. Like I have all these things, like this person doesn't. Maybe what do they need? And just kind of just constantly changing your perspectives, I think can just keep things moving. I don't even remember what your original question was.
You're just talking
That's
about
a
what
weird
obstacles
tangent.
you have as an artist, what kind of stressors, if you will. Certainly, I mean, I gotta admit, when I think about your workload, you got like this kind of Ben Franklin work ethic. Like, I'm totally like, oh my God, I'm lucky if I get 3 hours of work done a day, like a 10-hour, 14-hour appetite. But
I
it's
think
true.
the main thing is like keeping my body not in pain.
Nice.
But like I gave myself tendonitis and I like my hands cramp up really fast. I can't ride my motorcycle anymore because it's a little dangerous if your hands are like cramping. Like I've had to stop tattooing because I tattoo by hand and that seizes my hands up, like it's like you can push so hard, but no, your body's not always gonna like be down with that. So that's kind of like the main issue that I run into the
Well,
most.
certainly one thing to say also is, the school, there's a bunch of people that have gone through here from every parts of the globe. And I keep thinking about like the power of a global community. And,
Mhm.
in terms of also art exchange, these things you're talking about are really powerful in terms of building a network of people that are in terms of a supportive community.
Yeah, always. It's really important. And also if you're like traveling somewhere and you can support, like figure out how the best way to see stuff is to like meet local people or like other people interested in what you're doing. Like there's always going to be like a less weird touristy like view of things that you're going to get so much more out of, like in whatever situation you're going into. Like I think it's just looking for avenues that are like off the beaten path too.
I love it. I love it.
Well,
Well,
just to follow up on what you were saying, Monica, I wanted to, a few visiting artists back, we had McCullough Dwyer from Australia, and she has like over 40-year long career. And I asked her the question of like, what advice would you give your younger self if you could give them some advice today? And she said to listen to the body. That she didn't listen to her body and it fell apart. And now that she's in her like 60s, she's like, I should have been listening to my body. And so hearing that and then hearing what you said, it resonates with me because I'm also a workaholic and have struggled with health and body issues because of how much my mind just wants to keep going and how easy it is to ignore the maybe unimmediate triggers or signals that the body is needing attention. So thanks for your honesty around my question too. I appreciate it.
Yeah. I mean, it just gets expensive. Like having to get body work. Like, I don't know. It just is expensive and it is cool. Like I've always cooked my own food and like I've always been pretty healthy person in general, but your body gets worn out way quicker when you get older.
well,
I feel young, but I feel like an old lady at the same time. Like
your talk is certainly invigorating for me. I'm totally getting gifts. I totally love the lessons of an art life that you have. I love the work you make. I want everyone to give it up to Monica for her incredible work and her generous use of her time and talking to us. Cool. All right, everyone. Thanks so much. Ciao, everybody.
yeah, thank you.
Bye. Thanks,
Hi,
everyone.
thank you.
Artists around the world, teaching artists around